Alabama's running game is terrible, and Indiana has an elite run defense. The Hoosiers should be able to win the game on that right there.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked On Crossover with Locked On Hoosiers and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, along with my guy, Jacob Goins from Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you for making both our podcasts a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcasting platform in the land. Today, we're going to be talking about some questions I have for Jacob on how he thinks the game's going to go a little later in the show. Going to have some fun with what's going to happen in the Rose Bowl. We're going to be talking about IU's Playmakers, which ones stand out. He and I are actually on the same page, a little preview for what we think is going to happen. One specific guy that probably, Jacob, honestly, doesn't get enough love, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. And IU is going to be able to stuff Alabama's run game. We're pretty steadfast, and I have some stats about that. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, you can be in the middle of the action with the NFL. Visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. Jacob, let's dive right in. I have a few stats for you that probably won't surprise you. IU's running game, like averaging 4 yards a carry is kind of like a minimum at the pro level. College, it's super low-hanging fruit, but I use it as a barometer. If I were to ask you in 13 games how many times Bama has averaged 4 yards per carry in a game, what would you come up with?
Out of the, 13, 4? No, they played in 14 games. Is that right? Oh. I mean.
Yeah, that's right.
14 because I don't know. Against P4 opponents, I'll say 2 or 3, maybe.
Against P4, it's 1. For the season, it's 3.
Oh.
So it's pretty bad considering their running back room. And they got Caden Proctor. That doesn't make any sense. He's as good a talent as his country. Indiana did it 8 times, 5 against P4 teams. Against teams with a winning record, they averaged 4.99 yards per carry. Bama, 2.91. So those are I'm a run game guy. I don't care if you run the air raid. There's a way to run the ball in circumstances. And they run a version of the air raid, really, because they throw it so much. It's a little more pro style mixed in. And I love their schemes, but they didn't focus enough in the offseason on how to run the ball. And they got Daniel Hill, among others. That is an animal.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. By the way, for those that don't know, their longest run of the season by a mainstream guy in a big game is Hill's 30-yard run against Oklahoma. And for the game, they still ran for 28 yards.
I've never seen this, man. And look, I've watched a lot of football in my time, and especially with the SEC, that's just what they do, right? They run the ball, and back in the day, it was run the ball and play defense for the South, and now everybody's running, high-powered quarterback offenses. But even just a middle-of-the-pack college football team should be able to run the ball better than Alabama does. And to be honest with you, I thought in the going into the Alabama-Oklahoma playoff game, I thought since both teams were so bad at running the football, I was like, well, I'm going to take the over in this game because both teams just give up on the run. They're just going to air it out and see what happens. And I don't know if that's what Alabama does moving forward, but if they can't run the ball in Indiana, and the answer is they cannot, because that's what Indiana is so good at, is just absolutely shutting you down on the ground and making you feel uncomfortable, making you put the ball in the air, making you try to pick apart the second and third levels, which are just as good for Indiana. Alabama's in trouble here, Brian, and I just don't understand. Even against bad opponents, Alabama can't run the football. I simply don't understand. And I'm sure Nick Saban is so happy watching from the stands of Bryant-Denny or the desk of College Game Day, knowing he doesn't have to deal with that.
Here's an interesting stat for you. Indiana against Old Dominion, that Colton Joseph kid that's now in the portal, the quarterback, who's very talented. Yep. He had 179 yards rushing against Indiana by himself, and they ran for over 200. That was
two big runs on those from that quarterback. Yep.
He's a great athlete. After that, Indiana adjusted. They've had one team go over 100 against them. That was Penn State, 33 carries. They just don't.
One of the best backs in the Big Ten. I mean,
yeah, like that running back group at Penn State's legit, but they still only gave 117. Indiana didn't play the schedule Bama did, but it was still difficult enough. Iowa on the road, Oregon on the road. They played Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, I mean, that's a pretty good start. And again, Penn State's run game is good. I know their team was weird this year, but they were dominant, and teams they should smother, they did. Their consistency stands out to me. So my only real question here to you when it comes to the run game, do you think Bama will really try to mix in some different things, or they're just going to come out and throw it 50 times? I mean, they've got really good coaches, don't get me wrong, but what do you think they're going to try to do, and how is Indiana going to counter?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's something that Indiana's having to wrestle with, right? Because just as much as we ask the question, okay, how much is Alabama going to run the ball versus throw the ball? Indiana's defense with Bryant Haynes has to say, okay, how much do we prepare for them to run the ball versus preparing for them to throw the ball, right? Do we just lighten the box, make it a 3-man rush and drop 8 in coverage and make it, miserable for Ty Simpson? Or do we bring some pressure? Do we have some simulated pressure? Do we prepare for them to run and load the box a couple of times just to remind them that they can't do it? I don't know. That's the chess match that we're going to see between Kalen DeBoer, Kurt Signetti, and then Bryant Haynes, Indiana's defensive coordinator, who's extended for the next 3 seasons, by the way. Huge news for Indiana. Both coordinators here for the foreseeable future. But if I am Alabama, I'm trying to find ways to get away from Indiana's playmakers on defense. I'm talking about the Michael Kamaras, the Aiden Fishers, the D'Angelo Pottons of the world. Those are kind of the ones that are up front. Reminder for Indiana, for people that may not know, one of the best defensive front guys in the country, Stephen Daly, is out for the year. All right, he's out. He was, I believe, 3rd in the nation in TFLs, a lot of those being on run plays. He's out for the year. And so Indiana is going to be missing a key piece up front. My guess is that Indiana does what they do. They'll bring pressure when they feel it's necessary. 3rd and long, they're going to get after Ty Simpson, but they're going to be just fine with 4 in the box. They've stopped the run with that, and they're going to make him pick apart a defense that not many have been able to do this year. For Alabama, I don't know. I mean, maybe try to get to the outside, try to do some funky stuff. But, man, nobody has been able to score consistently on Indiana this year, which is why I think this Alabama offense, which is so one-dimensional, I think it's in big trouble in the Rose Bowl.
I'm glad you brought that up. A stat that both teams do very well with would be turnovers. Yeah. Indiana has created 28 and only has 8 themselves. They've only lost 1 fumble, which is an incredible stat. Bama has 20 turnovers they created, and they've lost 12. I mean, that's not terrible by any means, but Indiana's 2nd in the country. Bama is 23rd. In close games or anything that could be close, a turnover early especially can change everything. I'm curious to see if both teams do a good job with ball security. And on that note, Bama needs to start catching the football better. They dropped some passes.
They did. Yeah. And Indiana will take advantage of that. Indiana's DBs are incredibly talented in terms of deflections and knocking it out of your hands and things. But taking care of the football, that's on Fernando Mendoza, who has been good about it this year. But you and I've even talked about it the last several weeks of the season. He was putting it in harm's way a little bit. If Purdue was any better of a football team, they probably had 2 or 3 picks on Fernando Mendoza. Threw an early one against Ohio State. He bounced back. And so, look, Bama is an opportunistic team. Their offense struggles. You cannot give them defensive or special team scores. So, taking care of the football. Yeah, exactly. Literally. I mean, you've got to take care of the football. It's so elementary to say that on a podcast, but it's true, man. You can't give that Bama team any extra help because you can beat them if you're Indiana if you don't. But if you start letting them score easy points, then you're going to be in trouble.
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk about Indiana's playmakers. And again, as a prelude, we talked about this at the beginning. There's one guy that Jacob and I are very high on that we think should be, at least, a very key in this game. That is next here on this crossover Locked On Hoosiers and the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or a momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, no matter what it is that happens during the game, and the point spreads will change. The money lines will adjust instantly. Player props will update as the guys heat up, and you can score on anything from the next drive result, the totals, player prop, anything that you want with FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the games move fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making Locked On Hoosiers and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith with Jacob Goins. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. And Jacob, I'm going to just dump into this question immediately because I just think it's a fun one. Is there anybody that's a playmaker on Indiana's offense that doesn't get enough attention and or that you think the Hoosiers should try to use against Bama's zone defense?
Yeah, the zone defense is the thing that you and I have both kind of narrowed in on here because there's no hiding Elijah Sarratt. There's no hiding Omar Cooper. And I think Indiana's 1-2 punch at the running back position and Roman Hemby and Kalen Black are the best that it gets in the Big Ten. People don't talk about that enough, but it's fine. There's a guy on this team that receives catches from Fernando Mendoza, who is very disciplined, very important in the offense that Indiana runs because of the chip blocks, the downfield blocking, and just the size that he has up front when they need him to be. He's your traditional tight end. He is Riley Nowakowski. And this guy, my Hoosier fans know, Locked On Hoosier everydayers know this. I have talked about this guy time and time again. He's got just 25 catches on the year, but he averages almost 13 catches per grab or 13 yards per grab. And that means, Brian, I know it doesn't work this way directly. He's averaging more than a first down every time he touches the football. And the amount of slip screens where the line moves one way, he hits that chip block, peels out the other way, and all the offensive line goes with him. That's what Indiana has been so good at this year. They just don't do it a ton. And maybe that's by design, and maybe that's just because you have all these other dudes on the field too. I'm sure Ohio State's tight end feels the same way, who is very good, by the way. But Indiana has an opportunity to let Riley Nowakowski just go wild in this game. And Alabama may not even see it coming because of the middle of the field being open, because of the zone defense that Bama plays. You start to have some miscommunications break down when you play zone defense. Indiana's X factor very well could be Riley Nowakowski, who's talented. He's got size. He is faster than you think he is, and all he needs is one lead blocker, and he can pick up chunk yardage in a hurry. I think he could be a big, big factor for Indiana offensively because Bama's going to focus on Sarratt and Cooper. How could you not? Those two guys are incredible to watch play football. I think Riley Nowakowski is absolutely somebody that fans need to keep an eye on.
It's ironic. He didn't have a catch against Purdue, not that they needed him. Purdue's so awful.
Yes.
But he only had 2 catches in the last game. But Bama, when Oklahoma was attacking them early in the game before they just completely destroyed their own opportunity to win, they threw the ball in the middle of the field to a bevy of different guys.
Yeah.
And it took some accurate throws, and give John Mateer credit. He was dealing pretty early. He obviously faltered later on, but the middle of the field is the easiest way to do that because most teams don't think that a quarterback will throw that because it's more dangerous. And it is. But Mendoza, if you remember back to the Penn State game and the last drive, et cetera, that throw that he threw, Nowakowski was right there for one of maybe the most important play of that drive. That was a deep shot. Tight ends don't normally catch that. Not many quarterbacks trust the tight end to throw a deep shot to a tight end, and he did. Those are the kinds of plays I'm talking about. It may only be 1 or 2 plays like that.
Yeah.
The middle of the field, if it's open, Fernando will throw it, and they could still do some of the slip screens, but the zone will at least somewhat mitigate that, but that'll give you more chances beyond the linebackers. And no linebackers are good in coverage. It's just not true. And Indiana.
I think Aiden Fisher is. I think Aiden Fisher is pretty darn good in coverage. Indiana's All-American linebacker, but I think he's solid. But I know what you mean. I mean, consistently, no. That they're not built to consistently drop in coverage, right? That's what you're getting at. Is they're not consistently built to drop back. Like that's not what their job is. But my concern for Alabama as we get closer to this game, I know we have more than a week before it happens, but my concern for Bama, when you look through their schedule, because you mentioned something earlier about them, seeing teams in the SEC and the schedule that they go through, but has Alabama seen a quarterback receiver combination like Indiana's going to present to them in the Rose Bowl? You're talking about the best player in the country in Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner. You're talking about Elijah Sarratt and Omar Cooper, who I think are straight dudes on Sundays in the NFL, plus Indiana's running back duo. I'm not going to say they're top of the line in the nation. I think they're very talented, but look at Alabama's schedule. Who's the best quarterback that they saw this year? I mean, you could say Diego Pavia, right? Because he was in New York. They handled him and did well. But I don't think Vanderbilt's got the receivers like Indiana does, right? You look at South Carolina, Lenora Sellers. I think he's extremely talented. They clearly don't have the playmakers that they did a year ago. Georgia, maybe in terms of playmakers, but I take Indiana's guys on the outside before I take Georgia's, and even Oklahoma. I think they obviously Mateer's a good quarterback, but they don't have the dudes on the outside. I think this is the best quarterback receiver combination that Indiana will present that Alabama has seen all season long. And I just don't think they're ready for it in the Rose Bowl. Indiana's offensive line better be ready. No doubt about that. Indiana's offensive line better be ready to go. But if you give Mendoza time, he's proven it. He's the best in the country for a reason. And I just don't think Alabama can hang with Indiana for 4 quarters with their defense versus Indiana's high-powered offense that has proven for 2 years now, Brian, they can drop 60 on almost anybody when they really want to.
They can throw it around, and they can also play the 4-minute offense when they want. Having 2 good running backs, Black and Hemby, will be important. I mean, I love James Smith and some of the guys that Alabama has up front. They're good. But at the same time, I just don't think Alabama's defense can make up for their lack of a running game, and they're probably going to lose the field position battle. I'm going to throw this out here because I don't like kickers anyway, but I do not want to see anything like what we saw in the first round of the playoffs from the kicking games in this one.
Oh,
my
horrible.
God.
Horrible.
I don't know what happened with all these teams. Like the kicker from Oklahoma was first-team All-American.
He was the Luke Rosa winner. He was the nation's best kicker. And he was like, nope, that was bad. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, but
he didn't make him, man. That's all there is to it. He didn't make him.
Hey, I'll say this for Indiana special teams before we move on to our final segment. The idea that Indiana, weirdly enough, doesn't use special teams all that much, that's a weird flex, and it sounds very arrogant, but it's true. Indiana just doesn't punt the ball very much, and they don't kick a whole lot of field goals because they go on long drives and they typically score touchdowns. That's just that's a fact. You can look at the stats. Again, it comes off so high and mighty, and I totally understand. But Nico Radicic this year for Indiana, he has attempted 16 field goals. 16 across the season. And then Brendan Franke, your long distance kicker, has kicked 2, but he's been banged up. So that's it. So special teams could be interesting. You didn't necessarily in the Ohio State game, even though it was close. Indiana goes on a game-winning touchdown drive, but keep that in mind. I mean, if it gets close and it does get into a kicking battle, Indiana's not overly experienced there, so you never know.
Well, Alabama's history, their one position they suck at has been kicker, but he did okay against Oklahoma, so maybe he'll be all right then. But I have some questions for Jacob about how I think this game's going to go. I want to see if he comes up with the same answers with these questions. That is next on this crossover, Locked On Hoosiers and Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time, and there's nothing like college football season. We're into the playoffs and got all the tailgates, all the stadiums, everything that's been absolutely incredible. And it's right there in the middle of all of it, the energy, the bands, everything that you have to remember forever. But actually getting tickets, especially for the playoffs, that can be frustrating with all the long queues, logins, and everything else, prices jumping out of checkout. That's why Game Time gives you the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing football tickets and expenses in just a few snaps. When you open up the fan or the Game Time app, it's going to be easy. Type in the team or the event that you want to go to. It'll take you there. You can see the seat view right there on your phone and get your seats easy. All you got to do is click on it. It'll show you the view. It'll show you the price. The price is the same all the way through, and that's why Game Time is a winner. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, last segment here with Jacob and myself talking about Bama taking on Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Just a few questions. Nothing earth-shattering, but I think these are fun. Biggest concern with Alabama's offense for the Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl?
It's It's a good question. I think if you were to have asked me this going into the season about Alabama in general, it would be Ryan Williams, right? But that guy has been non-existent. I mean,
He's
just
their fourth receiver now.
I simply don't know what happened. I
I don't
don't. I think
either.
he had 1 or 2 catches maybe in the Oklahoma game. I'm still concerned that if you don't put focus on him, he can just light it up at any time. But there's something going on there that I can't quite figure out. But I believe it or not, I think it's Ty Simpson. I mean, it's such a simple, basic, vanilla answer, but man, he's all they got. I mean, they got some receivers, there's no doubt. Their offensive line has been okay. They clearly, we talked about it earlier, they can't run the football. So, yeah, it's Ty Simpson making plays with his legs, too. Something people don't talk as much about, the idea that he has the ability to do so. And Indiana can't get so caught up in, they're not going to run the football. We're just going to drop back in coverage and hope that he throws it right in our arms. I think it has to be him. But I think also the Hoosiers have to be able to get pressure. They did against Ohio State. I think if you can kind of get that offensive line on its heels just a little bit, Indiana has a good chance to walk away with this thing. And so crazy enough, not to say any of the receivers, but I just think it's Ty Simpson making winning plays because I've counted him out several times this year, Brian, and he just keeps finding ways to do it, whether it be against Vandy or the 4 straight top 25 wins they had, or they had the win in the Iron Bowl, or they obviously weren't ready or even cared about the SEC championship game, but then they survived and beat Oklahoma. So, yeah, I'll go with the obvious answer. I'll go with the quarterback, Ty Simpson.
Will Indiana come after, speaking of, Ty Simpson early in the game the way that the Oklahoma Sooners did?
I think so. I think so. I talked about Indiana getting sacks. Julian Sayin, I've dropped this nugget several times and it's fascinating. Julian Sayin for Ohio State had been sacked 6 times all year going into the Big Ten championship game. He got sacked 5 times. That's right, 5 times in the Big Ten championship game. Indiana will absolutely come after him. And the good news is it's from different directions, it's from different places, and it's at all different times. Bryant Haynes and his staff are so dialed in with what they want to do defensively. Again, Stephen Daly being out changes that a little bit. There's no doubt about it. But Indiana's an aggressive team, and they love to get after the quarterback. Look, and I don't think Ty Simpson's 100% healthy. You said that going into the Bama-Oklahoma game. I still think that's the case. He took a couple of pops from the Sooners. He's got some time to get right, I guess. Indiana's coming after him, and they should. They absolutely should. You have the advantage up front if you're the Hoosiers with your defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line, which I know is a crazy saying, but it's true. Get after him. If he feels stressed, if he feels rushed, if he feels worried in the pocket, he won't be able to deliver balls that he wants to deliver downfield. Then you've got Indiana secondary, which is really, really good. And I think that's where you start to see some turnovers. So, yeah, no doubt about it. Indiana's coming after Ty Simpson all night long in the Rose Bowl.
I tend to agree. I think that the blitzes bothered him early. He adjusted. He did a nice job, and their offensive line adjusted too. But you got to take more advantage of it and not kill yourself on special teams. I don't think Indiana will do that. Is Mendoza ready for Bama's D? Because they play a lot of zone. I don't think they'll make the same mistake they did against Mateer. They dropped a lot early before they start coming out. That was a mistake.
Yeah,
I think they're going to come after Mendoza. Do you think they will, or what do you think Bama will try to do early in the ballgame?
They're going to try and get the passing lanes. They're going to try and put just enough pressure on him to not this sounds kind of weird, but not to make him uncomfortable, but to make him too comfortable almost, because I talked about him putting the ball in harm's way. He's continued to do that down the stretch. And again, most teams have not made him pay for it, but big interception in the Iowa game. He had a turnover in the Big Ten championship game. I talked about having 3 or 4 near turnovers against Purdue, which you could have scored touchdowns on all those and Indiana still won the football game. But that's not the point. The point is he has to take care of it. And so I think Alabama will need to get home, get in his head, and make it a long, drawn-out game. For Fernando Mendoza and the Hoosiers, it's about a hot start, because how many times has Indiana jumped on somebody and they just simply can't recover? Most of the time. In these bigger games, maybe not so much, but don't let Mendoza, if you're Alabama, if you can somehow control this any way, shape, or form, do not let Fernando Mendoza have the football in the fourth quarter with a chance to go win it, because he has done it several times this season, and there's a reason that he's holding the Heisman Trophy in his hands. He is the best and most clutch player in college football. I think Bama will try to fool him with some fake coverages, with some showing one thing and then checking into another. I don't know how ready Fernando will be for those things. Luckily, you've gone up against some of the better defenses in the country, Iowa, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, who did a lot of those things. But Alabama's going to have to throw everything they have at Fernando. And if you throw him off his game, you may have a shot.
Will IU double Alabama's rushing total?
Double. So Indiana double Alabama's well, I don't know. That's a good question because, again, Alabama doesn't average all that much. Indiana's committed to it. That's one thing. Even if Fernando Mendoza is dicing up a defense, Indiana will continue to run the ball because they get chunk plays. That's the good thing. And look, I think Indiana's offensive line, I've said this all year, I think they are better in run blocking than they are in pass pro. Believe it or not, I think they're better at run blocking than they are protecting Fernando Mendoza when he drops back. And so, God, that's such a tough question to say. But, we're just going to double them in the quarterfinals on the ground. I just don't see Bama running it for all that much. And Indiana, because they're committed to the run, Indiana may run double the amount of yards, but Brian, they may run double the amount of times that Alabama does.
That is also true.
Which could give them the yards advantage that you're asking about just from sheer volume alone. I don't expect Indiana to run for 250 yards and just go all over the place, but I think just from sheer volume alone, the Hoosiers will have a chance, and they have big play ability to make it happen. So sure, I'll take the bait. I'll say Indiana doubles up Alabama on the ground in the Rose Bowl.
I'm going 120-55, so I agree.
Love it.
Just a couple of quick questions here. Off season, after all this is over, do you think they'll go big in the portal with the quarterback? Because it sounds like Mestamaker with the guy from, people don't know, North Texas. I heard the number 3.5 million. Like, that sounds big to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's true and what's not. But how much do you think Indiana is going to dive into the portal, and how much are they going to be super aggressive?
Yeah, I think they have to at the quarterback spot in particular. Look, I know a lot of fans want it to be Alberto Mendoza, and he has a lot of experience in things, and he's played a lot of fourth quarters this year because his older brother has not. But in today's era of college football, I am of the belief, because of the transfer portal, you should never just have all your eggs in one basket of a quarterback. I just don't, unless he's a 3-year starter returning for his senior season, or like Texas with Arch Manning. Like, I get that, right? You're invested. You want that to work out. Alberto is not the starter right now. There's a reason he recruited his brother to come here. And Alberto's still young, don't get me wrong, but he recruited his brother saying, hey, come be the quarterback here, dude. You can be it. I'll sit behind you. We'll have a good time. Alberto could be that, but I don't think Indiana should bank on that. And that's nothing against him, but we don't know what he can do. High pressure situations, 12 games out of the year as the man. And I think you can go get somebody that you would feel a lot more confident in. So whether it's Mestamaker, whether it's Josh Hoover, whether it's Sam Levitt, Brendan Swords, all these names are out there right now who are not technically in the portal yet. We got to keep reminding people of that. But, they're not talking to anybody, and their phones are shut off, and they're not, none of those sketchy things are happening. I think Indiana will go and get somebody in the transfer portal. And if Alberto wins the job, by all means, brother, take the reins and have a good time. But I think Indiana will go get somebody in the portal at the quarterback spot.
I kind of think so too, even if it's just somebody that's good and they let the two guys, you have Mendoza's brother and then whoever you get battle it out. I agree.
I love competition, man. Makes iron sharpens iron. It really is that simple.
Defensively, what's the position they got to hit the most in the portal?
Oh, goodness. You're okay at linebacker. You're okay. Secondary, you're okay. I'm going to say the defensive line probably. Now, you are bringing in several dudes from the recruiting class that can fill in, but how much and how often do you want to play young puppies up front in the Big Ten? I don't know. That's an Indiana call. So I'll say the defensive line. You feel pretty good with 2 starting linebackers there and a couple of guys at the cornerback spot, and hopefully a couple of guys coming back from injury as well. So I'll say the defensive line position for Indiana in the transfer portal.
We'll cut it right there, but we'll be talking more about the Indiana versus Alabama game I'm sure between now and the time that game starts, that should be a fun game. And it's cool, by the way, that it's at the Rose Bowl. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
great venue. So
Yeah.
good for the Hoosier fans that are going out there. Check out Game Time if you need tickets. I'm sure the resale market will be expensive, but that's one place you can at least get the tickets.
Yep.
Jacob, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Yeah, Locked On Hoosiers, same way you find the Portal Podcast. Check it out on YouTube, your audio platforms. And both of us have the Everydayer Club going right now. So if you want to check that out, we'll have that in the descriptions down below. But yeah, subscribe to our channels. Check us out. We got a ton of coverage for you over the Christmas holiday, getting into New Year's Day as Alabama takes on the Indiana Hoosiers in the Rose Bowl.
Absolutely. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. We will see you again soon.